the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow.
Oh, Zazu, do lighten up. Sing something with a little bounce in it.
It's a small world after all.
No, anything but that.
I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. Dee-dee-dee-dee. There they are, a-standing in a row. Big one, small one, some as big as your head.
Look at what's happened to me. I can't believe it myself. Suddenly I'm up on top of the world. It should have been somebody else. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me. Just like the light of a new day, hit me from out of the blue, breaking me out of the spell I was in, making all of my wishes come true. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me.
Hi everybody, I'm back. I want to talk to somebody that's new in recovery. And as you saw in the beginning, we talked about, or the music talked about different things. The environment around us. I remember having people say, why can't you just stop? And it took a long time to realize that's the only way I could stop, was to realize that I was no different. I had somebody ask me that one time, and I said, and they were a big fan of McDonald's. They loved McDonald's. So I said to them, why not try this? You go to McDonald's, you buy yourself your favorite meal, the entire thing, fries, burger, your dessert, everything. You pay for it, you sit down, you eat one fry, and walk out. If you can do that, then tell me to just stop. At that point, the person looked at me and said, what do you mean just stop? Because I'm going to McDonald's, I'm hungry, I love the food, I want to eat it. I'm not going to eat just one fry and walk out. I said, that's what my addiction is. Once I get started, it's hard to stop. And the only way to stop is to learn something new. And in that respect, People Growing Hope in Recovery, which started out as Problem Gambling Hope in Recovery, has become a place where we hope that you'll find the unity of people that have been in the same place, that have been at the bottom. I'm going to tell a little bit of my story at the beginning, and we'll go from there. But it hopefully gives you hope, because everybody's story is different, but here's mine. In January of 2007, I was actively gambling. And in the process, my mom had been on dialysis and had 30/13 of blood pressure, which is basically dead. My sister, who was a nurse, and the oldest, and my dad had decided to bring her home for hospice. So the next morning she was supposed to go home in hospice. I drove up, but because I'm a gambler, because I was a gambler, I made a shortcut. I found a shortcut I thought would get me there quicker. Got lost, blew out 2 tires, stopped and gambled a little bit along the way, and by the time I got there, it had taken 2 hours or more when it should have only taken about 45 minutes to an hour. It doubled, maybe tripled my time. I'm not even sure. All I know is I walked in, I saw a note, and it said, went to the hospital. Mom went to talk about mom. And what happened is I didn't read the whole note, because what it said is she woke up and she was going to she had to make the decision, because time in 3 years she was competent to make the decision as to whether she wanted to come home in hospice or continue treatment. Now, that said, all I read is we went to the hospital. And I was rushing up there because I thought she was at the end of the road and she was going to die. So when I saw that and I saw we went to the hospital, I thought the worst. I went straight to the worst, which is basically what happens at the bottom of my gambling. That began a process for me because I was bawling when they walked in and they said, why are you crying? I said, because I saw your note. And they said, did you read the whole thing? And I said, no, I just read that you went to the hospital and assumed that mom had died. They clarified it with me, and later that day, mom came home for hospice. She was there at home for a week, and she surprised us all in that what we expected wasn't what happened. She lived a while, got to see people, and even on her last day, she had a meal real early in the morning, and went really downhill quickly afterwards. And I'd say about 9, 10 in the morning, she gets visitors that finally made it there to see her. And they were told by my dad, don't expect anything. She hasn't been able to talk since she had breakfast early this morning, say 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And she's been moaning and groaning and is pretty much grasping at each moment. Now, that said, the minute they walked in and they got to the foot of the bed, she sat up, said, hello, how are you doing? And basically scared the hell out of everybody because one of the words she said, surprise. And I'm assuming that somehow she heard what we were saying outside, that we thought she was gone, or going to be gone shortly. She carried on a conversation with these people that came the last minute. And at the end, after they had left, went right back to where she was, and a few hours later died. Now, for me, that was an aha moment, that things are not in my control. But it wasn't enough to get me to stop. It took me until November 21st, 2007, in a GA meeting, the second GA meeting to be exact, to finally stop completely. My first one, I pigeonholed all the questions, and I basically denied I had a problem, turned around, walked out of there, and within 30 minutes of hearing all these, well, actually 30 seconds, if that, I had pulled into the speedway that was just down the street and bought a scratch-off ticket. And upon doing so, busted out in tears again, just like I did back in January, because that clarified for me I was an addict, even though I'd heard all these stories. And that was the beginning of my recovery. Now, that said, since that time, I thought I could fix people for the first. I got about 4 years in my recovery. I thought I could fix other people, and wanted to do it my way. I figured if they followed what I told them, they'd be fine. And I learned something by ending up in the hospital and getting diagnosed in 2011 with asthma. I woke up on the morning of the meeting. A nurse comes in and says, I see you're fiending for meeting. And I couldn't understand what she meant by that. And what she meant by that is this, that she knew I was an addict that needed a meeting. She didn't know what my addiction was, but in the conversation, I found out that she was an addict that was in recovery and had made progress. And that changed my perspective a little bit because it wasn't the same addiction. But yet she could see I was fiending for meeting. I had become addicted to meetings and helping people and doing what I thought was the right thing, using 12 steps and trying to have people do them the way I did them, rather than let them have their own journey. That became a vision for PGHR, Problem Gambling Hope and Recovery, which is now People Growing Hope and Recovery, because it doesn't matter the addiction. It matters the recovery. And the recovery is not going to be an easy road. It's narrow, and it's something you work together with. My addiction had been wide, and it took me down some pretty dark places. I was in hospital for suicidal depression at the very end, and when I came out, I wasn't sure what to do. Now that said, let's get on to what PGHR, People Growing Hope and Recovery, is about, and how it might be something that you could consider if you're new and you haven't really figured out your addiction. It can be a place where you can be safe to learn how to live and learn different ways. It may be that you'll go to a single purpose type of meeting where you'll talk to people about your specific addiction, whether it be gambling, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whatever it might be. And it might also be at some point, or even right away, getting together with people who are all on the same road. That road of narrow connectedness of recovery, learning how to reconnect. And in the process of safety of the meetings, you learn, I learned things that I took out in the community. I no longer, often no longer have this idea that if somebody cuts me off, I'm mad at them and I'm going to get them. I now say, they've had a bad day, I'm going to let it go. Because something beyond what I have control of. It's beyond the area of my skin. It's something outside of me. And that is the hope of recovery, is learning how to deal with my own demons, not necessarily get rid of them, but deal with them in a different way so that I can be a better person. That said, I want to welcome anybody that's interested in joining, and hopefully it helps. Thanks.
Look at what's happened to me. I can't believe it myself. Suddenly